Hello and welcome to another video. I'm going to be doing today a overview of the graphical power of Assassin's Creed Origins using PC settings. Just to show an example here of what's going on, just a little rendering of what I'm currently in the Ultra settings, just showing a little bit of the detail of the game here and the performance it has along with it. Right now I'm running at about 60 frames per second locked in. Going to show you here I am running a GTX 1070. I'm using about 3,761 megabytes of VRAM here in the bottom right corner. I am using a 1440p resolution with 120 Hz. And I'm going to go over here to the graphics tab and show you where I'm using here. As you see on the right, it does show when you're in the graphics tab your performance, a running log of your frames per second, and you can see some dips in performance here and there when it's rendering a new location. But overall, during the last 30 seconds, average of 30 frames per, 60 frames per second rather, as you see is locked here. Stable frame score. And this is using the custom setting, which is basically ultra high with the dynamic resolution at 60 frames per second and anti-aliasing to adaptive. Now you can adjust that to high and that will turn dynamic resolution off and adjust your anti-aliasing as well. But you can leave everything custom otherwise. But just wanted to show some setting differences here and how much it affects the game. If you go down to even the ultra high settings and turn dynamic resolution off, you notice that it jumps down a significant amount. And even when you go from ultra high to very high, there's not much of a difference, but your biggest jump from very high down is high, and that jumps you about another 30% in terms of performance power. Going down to medium jumps you almost to half, and low brings you down to about half as much power as the max settings for the game. So if you're running an older computer, absolutely you'd be able to play it, and the game would still look, in my opinion, amazing. Maybe not as nice as you would wish it to be, but the game would run very well for you nonetheless. Going back up to ultra high settings with the custom dynamic resolution and anti-aliasing on, just to show some different adjustments if you wish to keep it custom. Environment details is one of your biggest adjustments. Going down from ultra high to high drops you about 500 megabytes of VRAM. Medium drops you a little bit lower than that. Low drops you just a shade hair lower, and very low really doesn't make much of a difference for you. So if you're looking for a good mix, I would probably recommend the high settings if you're capable of running that, just to keep you in a nice view while running a steady amount of frames. That is a good recommendation on my part. Again, just opinion where you want to run your video game at. Texture detail does adjust it as well, slightly. You notice about a 200 VRAM megabyte jump. Low drops it about to 300 less. Very low makes minimal difference in terms of about 100 megabytes. But you start seeing a massive amount of texture difference even at medium to save you a little bit if that's the case for need of performance. So I'm running everything on max settings here. Clutter, if you don't like messy grass, you can drop down and you can save yourself a tiny bit of processing power, and it looks like you have a nice amount of shaved grass there. So clutter, depending on how you like your grass, you can leave it low or very high. There's not much of a difference of quality. It really just comes down to what you like seeing in a video game and what you don't. Fog, which is really nice and rendered well in the game, does adjust a tiny amount, about 100 megabytes at its lowest setting. Will save you a few frames per second. Water, doing the same for you, not really much of a difference in terms of processing power savings, but the adjustment is really nice in terms of how it looks. Texture detail in your characters, you see a lot of detail drop right off to medium. to very low is really basic, and there's not a major adjustment in terms of performance, but you will gain some frames per second for sure out of that, just because you don't have to constantly render what Bayek's costume is looking like. Character detail does the same. Small difference in terms of performance power. It'll save you some frames per second for sure, but there's a lot of detail to be had if that's something you really like in the game. Ambient occlusion again is going to save you just a tiny bit of VRAM space, but in my opinion it's nothing to squabble over if you're looking for a good mix of both. So just to show you what it looks like here, again, you can see all your performance tools of where your frames per second are. This dip here at 57 was rendering into the game. CPU performance pretty steady in terms of where it's going. GPU performance again very steady overall. And again, you can see my system here, which is again an Alienware R4 17 using an i7 7700HQ, the GTX 1070, and then I'm running DirectX 11 as well. So you can benchmark this as well if you wish. I'm not going to do that today, just for the fact of keeping the video shorter, but I am going to jump back into the game a little bit and just show you some details of what the game looks like. So here you notice a good rendering of the ground. Bayek's costume and his weapons look amazing in terms of performance quality. I'm still sticking right about 62 frames per second while sanding around. Depending on what's going on, that obviously will lower. I'm pretty out in the secluded areas here. But even running and moving, I'm still right around 61, 62 frames. Just to show you some differences here. The grass is nice and rendered well. Everything looks good in terms of how it moves when I'm running through it. Ivy on top of the buildings looks nice as well. The shadow quality of the flames against the walls looks really nice, looks very realistic. Tree detail looks great. Shadows off of it are wonderful as well. So overall the game is very great to look at, and just an overall nice place to be if you don't have anything going on and you want to spend a few minutes in a fantasy world of ancient Egypt, which is fascinating in and of itself. Highly recommend. Depth of field, just to show you here, quite a way in the video game as well. You can see mountains over to the left, all the way around you. Very nice views. So overall, I want to thank you for watching the video. I hope you've learned something a little bit about what you can do if you were on the fence between the PC or a console version. I did choose the PC over the Xbox just because I thought I could make it look a little bit nicer over the Xbox version, and I don't think I regret my decision one bit. So again, thank you for watching and have a great day.